It wasn't supposed to be like this. We weren't even supposed to be out there. The plan was simple. A weekend road trip, just me, Jess, and Haley, 3 friends. A few days of laughs, drinks, and no responsibilities. But what no one told us was that the damn GPS would go haywire out in the middle of nowhere, leading us deep into some godforsaken stretch of forest where even the road looked like it hadn't been used in years. The sun had set by the time we realized we were lost. The narrow, winding road seemed to stretch on forever, flanked by towering trees on either side. The headlights of Jess's car barely pierced the darkness ahead, making the shadows feel like they were closing in on us. "I told you we should have turned back hours ago," Jess muttered, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. She was always the practical one. And now she was on edge, her eyes flicking nervously between the road and the rearview mirror. "I didn't expect the GPS to lose signal in the middle of nowhere," Haley snapped from the back seat, her voice shaky. "We'll find a main road soon, right?" I didn't answer. I wasn't so sure anymore. The road seemed to go on, deeper into the woods, and then the engine sputtered. Just like that, the car slowed, jerking violently before it came to a dead stop. "Are you kidding me?" Jess swore, slamming her hand against the dashboard. She tried the ignition again. Nothing. Dead. "Battery?" I asked, feeling a knot of dread forming in my stomach. "It's not the battery. Something else is wrong," Jess said, her voice tight. Haley leaned forward, peering out of the window. "Where the hell even are we?" We were miles from any town, from anything really. No lights, no houses, just trees. The road was barely wide enough for one car, and the trees seemed to press closer with every second, their branches hanging overhead like twisted fingers. "I'll call someone," I said, pulling out my phone, but the screen showed what I'd been dreading: no service. "Same here," Jess said, staring at her own useless phone. "We're stuck." Haley was already out of the car, pacing and looking around, her breath coming out in short, anxious bursts. "We can't just sit here all night. Someone's going to come down the road eventually, right?" I wasn't sure who she thought would be driving down this desolate stretch of road in the middle of the night. There hadn't been a single car for hours. "We need to stay calm," Jess said, opening the car door. "We'll walk. There has to be a gas station or something not too far." I wasn't thrilled about it, but sitting there wasn't an option either. We grabbed a flashlight from the glove compartment and started walking, sticking close together as we headed down the dark road. The woods were too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that made your skin crawl. No wind, no animals, just the crunch of our shoes on the gravel and our shallow breathing. After what felt like an hour, Jess stopped. "Did you hear that?" We all froze. There was a noise, faint but unmistakable, something moving through the trees just off to our left. "Maybe it's a deer," Haley whispered, her voice barely audible. She didn't sound convinced. Neither was I. The sound came again, louder this time. Twigs snapping, something big, too big to be a deer. "Get back to the car," Jess ordered, her voice sharp. We turned, moving quickly but trying not to run, even though every instinct was screaming at me to bolt. As we walked, the sounds in the woods seemed to follow us: rustling leaves, the crunch of underbrush, like something was pacing us, just out of sight. "Maybe we're imagining it," Haley said, trying to sound hopeful. But Jess and I exchanged a glance. This was real. Suddenly, Haley screamed. I whipped around just in time to see her yanked off the road, her body disappearing into the trees. The flashlight she held flew out of her hand, spinning wildly before it hit the ground and went out. "Haley," I screamed, running toward where she'd been, but Jess grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "Don't," she yelled, her eyes wide with terror. "We don't know what's out there." But I couldn't just leave her. "Haley," I screamed again, my voice cracking. All we heard in response was her distant, choked-off cry. We both stood there, frozen, waiting, but there was no sound after that, only silence. I wanted to run after her. I wanted to tear through those woods and find her, but Jess yanked me back again, hard. "We can't save her," she whispered. "We have to go." We stumbled back toward the car, my legs numb, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind us, I could hear it again. Whatever had taken Haley was coming back. The footsteps were heavier now, louder, no longer trying to hide. We made it to the car, slamming the doors shut. Jess fumbled with the keys, trying the ignition again, even though we both knew it was useless. The engine remained dead. Outside, the creature or whatever it was circled us, its growl vibrating through the air. My hands were shaking, but I grabbed the flashlight and aimed it out the window. And there it was. A massive, hunched figure, half hidden in the trees, but its eyes, its glowing yellow eyes, were unmistakable. A low, guttural growl rumbled from its throat, the sound reverberating through the car. Its body was covered in matted fur, and its elongated snout dripped with blood. Haley's blood. Jess was crying now, whispering, "It's a werewolf. It's a fucking werewolf." I didn't need to be told. I knew it. I'd seen its eyes before in old stories, but this was real, too real. It slammed against the car, the metal groaning under the impact. I screamed, grabbing Jess's hand as we huddled in the front seat. The creature kept circling, its claws scraping against the windows, its hot breath fogging the glass. It could have killed us then easily, but it was playing with us, enjoying the hunt. Then, suddenly, it stopped. We waited, trembling, but the creature didn't strike again. After what felt like hours, it slunk back into the woods, disappearing into the blackness. We didn't leave the car that night. Couldn't. When the sun finally rose, we got out, shaking and cold, and started walking down the road. Eventually, we found a ranger station. We never told them what really happened to Haley. They wouldn't have believed us. But I know what I saw. Jess knows too. And I still hear it sometimes, when the wind howls at night, that same low growl, lurking just outside my window, waiting